Hello, everyone. This is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I wanted to discuss the Democratic Party's attempts to use former President Barack Obama to galvanize support for Kamala Harris from Black men. While the majority of Black men are still voting for Kamala this November, the tide appears to be turning. Historically, the Democrats were guaranteed more than 90% of the Black vote, regardless of their policies. But since Obama left office in 2016, those numbers are decreasing, and the Democratic Party is panicking because they don't want the trend to continue. They're trying to prevent a mutiny or slave revolt on the plantation. Unfortunately, Obama's last-minute attempts to appeal to the brotherhood of Black men backfired, and Black men justifiably felt insulted by his patronizingly paternal tone, not just because Black men have daddy issues, but because Obama has never shown any particular interest in addressing or even acknowledging the concerns of Black men, most certainly not in the same way he did the LGBTQ community and the Dreamers, aka the immigrants. Unsurprisingly, many Black women Democrats are irritated and rolling their eyes at Black men, accusing them of misogyny and betrayal, which I think may have some merit, but I think this perspective is also disingenuous and intellectually lazy. I do find it ironic that many Black women complain about Black men not being leaders of anything but criminality, poverty, sexual exploitation, and domestic violence. But once Black men take a leadership position and start asking the Democratic Party for real tangibles that benefit them, and not just women or gays or immigrants, the same women try to reel Black men back onto the plantation with massa because, quiet as it's kept, many Black women, not all, but many Black women take pride in being the bottom woman for the Democrats. I want to say the B word, but I don't use the B word that much. But yeah, I didn't know what a bottom woman was until last week, but apparently a bottom woman is the most loyal and profitable prostitute in the pimp stable. And we have seen evidence of Black women proudly and ferociously guarding their position on the plantation because they were legitimately offended when Biden attributed his 2020 victory to the Hispanic vote, which technically may be correct because there's a larger Hispanic population than a Black population now. So just as the Black women kind of sort of replaced Black men with the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is replacing the Black community with the Hispanic population. They're literally bringing in tens of millions of immigrants into this country to swallow up the native population, just like they did when the first waves of Europeans settled into the country in the 1700s and 1800s. If you haven't noticed it by now, the oligarchs that rule the world, in this country in particular, they periodically flood the gates at the borders and at the ports with immigrants to suppress wages, create social divisions, and displace native populations. So anyway, many Black women have inadvertently or intentionally replaced Black men with the Democratic Party, largely because the Democratic Party can give Black women something that most Black men cannot, which is protection, power, social status, wealth, prestige, and thus respect. In fact, we can even say that without the Democratic Party, Oprah Winfrey would not be Oprah. Simone Sanders wouldn't have the platform she has now. Whoopi Goldberg would not be a multimillionaire because unless you are a light-skinned or non-Black woman, many Black men feel like Black women aren't worth a damn. So many Black men are socialized and programmed into believing that Black women are low class, low status, and thus deserve nothing but poverty, abuse, disrespect, contempt, and exploitation. On the other hand, the Democratic Party gives Black women the opportunity to earn social capital through education and gainful employment, which gives them the economic resources they need to escape the cycle of poverty and dysfunction that many Black men may feel that Black women deserve and are entitled to. Of course, the liberation and empowerment of Black women comes at a cost. We have high infant mortality, domestic violence, femicide, and single motherhood in our communities at an all-time high, which I believe is because many Black men subconsciously want to humble and weaken Black women into the subservient, downtrodden, and broken positions they feel they deserve to be in. So no matter how smart or beautiful or feminine you are as a Black woman, you'll still end up withering on the vine in one way or another. Conversely, on the Democratic plantation, massa takes care of Black women more than Black men, hence the unwavering loyalty and absolute vitriolic hatred for Black people, men and women, who don't toe the line. So listen, A long time ago, hundreds of years ago, centuries ago, Black women learned that when Black men get power, they become diddified. They use their power and their resources to abuse and exploit women to the detriment of Black women. And yes, men of all races do this. Men of all races exploit their women sexually or financially in some way. But at least the white man makes sure his woman is a standard of beauty, power, and privilege. And she's a status symbol, even if she looks like Jennifer Aniston. Russell Simmons did not do that for Black women. Tyler Perry isn't doing that for Black women. P. Diddy wasn't doing this for Black women. So Black women are raised in a society where they have to earn protection, they have to earn provision, and they have to earn respect. It's not a birthright. And the Democratic Party gives Black women the Black girl magic validation that they can't get from most Black men who low-key resent them for being the preferred slave on the plantation, because quiet as is kept, just like Black women, many Black men want to be the bottom woman for massa too. Just ask men like Ed Buck. But the dynamics between white men and Black men are different from those between white men and Black women for historical reasons, cultural reasons, sexual reasons, economic reasons. Black women are perceived as more loyal and less of a threat to white men. And white men know that once a Black man gets a certain amount of power, he's going to compete for his power, his resources, and most importantly, his women, just like they were doing in Europe and the Middle East. So when Black men say that they're at odds with the Democratic Party, Black women may feel personally attacked because their position as a bottom woman is being threatened. Because of compounded social cultural trauma, many Black women, and I believe Kamala Harris has some trauma too, many Black women have fragile egos and narcissistic traits to the extent that they're willing to jeopardize their community and even their country, or even their families in some cases, to maintain their status as the most loyal slave on the plantation. The issue with Kamala Harris isn't necessarily her race or her gender. The issue for me is the fact that she's using her race and her gender to plaster over her gross incompetence, and she's nothing more than an empty suit. Listen, if we're honest with ourselves as Black women, most Black women who worked in corporate America or nonprofits, and women were leadership, we've met women like Kamala Harris. We've worked for women like Kamala Harris. They have no interest in the job that they were hired for. They have no interest in getting their hands dirty. They'll just delegate their responsibilities to everybody else. Women like Kamala Harris are only interested in the optics and the illusion of power. They're only interested in just the position as, a vanity title. And that is why she was chosen by Joe Biden, because Joe Biden didn't feel threatened by her. He felt like she was too lazy to really be a threat to him until his own health issues betrayed him, and she kind of had to step on his back to get to where she is today. And I'm sure he's bitter about that, but that's his fault. Joe Biden is now essentially a lame duck, and I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to burn the house now before he leaves to make Kamala look even less competent and, to force her to do some work. But this is what happens. So, yeah, a lot of Black women have, really fragile egos, and they're willing to jeopardize other people for their own personal aspirations. Men do this too, but we're talking about women right now. Now, the issue, again, is not Kamala's race. It has nothing to do with her gender. It's the fact that she has to rely on her race and her gender to legitimize herself as a candidate. And your race and your gender have nothing to do with your ability to govern or to be a leader. And if that's all you have to rely on, then it proves that you are a DEI hire, period. Now, unfortunately, many Black women are emotionally invested in the idea of seeing a version of themselves in the highest office of the land, and they want to live vicariously through Kamala. They will ignore her glaring flaws in the hopes that Kamala's presidency will afford them the social status and respect that they're so hungry for. Kamala Harris has nothing in common with most Black women, but again, Black women are living vicariously through her, just like many of them were living vicariously through Michelle Obama and Meghan Markle. My issue with Kamala Harris has nothing to do with her race or gender. It's the fact that she's a careerist with no nationalistic principles, and it's very dangerous to have a president who's not a nationalist. That is how you end up in a banana republic or a third world country like Nigeria. And Nigeria isn't a third world country because it lacks resources and human capital. It's third world because the leadership of Nigeria are not nationalistic. They're tribalistic globalists who will use binoculars to watch their country rot in poverty and violence from their palatial estates in Paris and London. The oligarchs who rule the world are not nationalistic because they can't afford to live any and everywhere. All they care about is money and power. So Trump being a nationalist doesn't necessarily mean he's a white nationalist. The ADOS FBA movement is a nationalistic movement that is based on ancestral ties to the land. If you're an American, you're supposed to be a nationalist. This is your home. And whatever issues you have with your home, you can fix it. You don't just say, I hate this country, let's sell it to the corporations and the military-industrial complex, or even to AIPAC. It is very dangerous to have a president who resents, hates, or has contempt for the so-called entitled Americans who are too smart now to work themselves to death for an elusive American dream, which is now just a trick bag. The millions of immigrants being brought in are replacing the millions of Americans who have been poisoned to death by the FBA and the CIA for decades. The oligarchs who control the U.S. corporations and the government, they know that Native Americans who are of different races and different cultures, Native Americans are a threat to their power because these people will fight to conserve the principles and values that prevent the corporations from turning this country into Haiti or Venezuela. So if Black women are really honest with themselves and they got out of that ego for a minute, because I'm Black too, I can say that. And I'm not criticizing Black women out of hatred or malice, right? I love Black people. I love Black women. I love the Black community. I love everybody, right? But I want us to do better. I want us to be more critical, and I want us to be more politically astute when it comes to making these types of decisions. So if we're really honest with ourselves and we get out of our egos for just a second, we would be able to admit that Kamala Harris is not a viable presidential candidate, and her selection is a slap in the face to the feminist movement. We have brilliant women like Condoleezza Rice, even though I hated her role in the Bush cabinet. Women like Tulsi Gabbard, Cynthia McKinney, Nina Turner, even Stacey Abrams, who are more qualified, more competent, and have a more suitable disposition for that role. There are thousands of Black women who attended HBCUs like Spelman and Howard, or PWIs like Brown and Dartmouth and Vassar and NYU, Stanford. There are literally hundreds of thousands of Black women who are educated, who are hardworking, who are intelligent, who will be a better fit for this role. And this is the best the party can come up with? Are you guys serious right now? So yes, Kamala Harris is not entitled to your vote because she's a woman. She does not have the right to be president because she's a racially ambiguous woman. And if you're voting for her just because of her race and her gender, just like we did Obama in 2008 and 2012, you're giving Black men just cause to not vote for her because, women are voting for her to feed your egos. You know she's not competent. That's why you're relying on her identity politics. And voting for her exclusively for her race and her gender does not benefit Black men. I could see if Kamala Harris was offering specific tangibles for Black men like they have for immigrants and the LGBTQ community and Israel, and, Black men were still hating. But Kamala Harris said there wasn't anything she would change about Biden's policies. So are Black men supposed to continue to support mass illegal immigration, high inflation, unaffordable housing, endless wars, unaffordable childcare, the mental health crisis, drugs flooding into the country? Are they supposed to support this chaos still? The oligarchs are playing chess, and they know that as long as you feed an insecure person's ego, which would be in this case Black women, they'll let the world around them crash and burn as long as they don't lose anything. So as long as Sister Girl with her pearls and her AKA sorority affiliations and the Divine Nine get to win, forget the rest of the country, right? So again, Black women, you cannot ask Black men to be leaders and then get mad when they actually lead and they have the courage to ask questions and make demands for what they want. You can't have it both ways. You can't be the top bottom on the plantation, but then expect your man to lead you in a direction you want to go in, even if it goes against his best interests. So instead of criticizing, attacking, and insulting Black men, find out what they're asking for. What do they want? And are your needs in alignment with their needs? Being a leader sometimes means doing what is unpopular, what is unsafe, what is uncomfortable. You cannot ask these men, these Black men, to be leaders as long as they follow you to bask in the glory of your own individual ego gratification, which may be at their expense and their peril. Leadership is courageous, it is strong, it is intelligent, and even if you don't agree with their stance, you have to respect the fact that these Black men are looking at their lives and wanting more for themselves and their families. Most Black men voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So the issue isn't just about gender here. The issue is the fact that many Black men feel like they're being left behind in a society that wants them to be codependent on the very system that wants to keep them economically enslaved. It is precarious for Black men to depend on the system for work. It's dangerous. It's not safe. It's not secure. A lot of Black men don't feel safe working in a corporate 9-to-5 environment, which is why a lot of them don't want to go to college. Many of them are more comfortable, working a trade, truck driver, plumber, electrician, whatever the case may be. They're more comfortable in that space. But a lot of Black women have weaponized the fact that Black men aren't going to college as much as they are to say that Black men aren't deserving of any sort of respect or any sort of acknowledgement by the Democratic Party. And that's not fair. Yes, a lot of Black men are felons who don't even have the right to vote. And they have been economically and socially disenfranchised for decades, even after paying their debt to society. For me, it is very irritating to listen to and watch Black women brag about how independent they are while still complaining about Black men not providing for them and doing things for them, right? You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. And many Black women may say, well, we're forced to be independent because many Black men don't feel like we're worthy of being taken care of. And that is also true. But Black women have to admit to themselves that they don't trust a Black man's leadership. They don't. And for good reason. I mean, look at the music and entertainment industry. It is what it is. Like, we can see what happens when Black men receive power. They start to abuse and exploit women. So it's a complicated dynamic here because both sides are correct. Black women have the right to not trust Black men, and they're justified in not trusting them. But Black men also have the right to look out for their own best interests too, because they're autonomous human beings. So instead of arguing with each other about who's right and who's wrong, let's discuss where the wants and needs of Black men converge with the wants and needs of Black women, because there has to be some convergence somewhere. Otherwise, we're literally in two different worlds. So if we don't have anything in common and we don't want the same things, why are we forcing each other to vote for the same political party? A lot of married white women vote for the Democratic Party, and a lot of married white men vote for the Republican Party. So apparently in the white community, you can have Democrats and Republicans living in the same household. The white men and the women don't have to all vote for the same party. Why do all Black people need to vote for the Democratic Party? Why are Black men being maligned for looking out for their best interests, especially considering the system has been brutal against them for decades? Yes, they were responsible for the participation in the drug trade. Yes, they're responsible for destroying the communities. But a felon has less rights than an illegal immigrant. A felon whose ancestors helped to build this land and who was targeted by the government with genocidal drug wars and state-sanctioned terrorism has less rights than an illegal immigrant who broke the law to get into this country in the first place. Does that sound like an issue for you, Black women? Should Black men continue to vote for that? I don't think so, okay? One of the valid and justified complaints that Black men have is the fact that illegal immigrants are displacing them in the trades. Construction, plumbing, electrical work, so on and so forth. And, traditionally, these opportunities pay more than, minimum wage. Before I forget, quick side note, thank God most Black men are waking up from the I want to be a rapper, drug dealer, kingpin, pimp, fever dream that they've held on to for decades. And they're taking their talents to the microphone as podcasters. Even though most of them don't know how to do shit but complain about Black women, still this avenue is a better alternative than selling drugs, being a pimp, and some sort of criminal in the community. So anyway, Black men are justifiably concerned about their economic future in this country. They have too many strikes against them, and their needs aren't being met. Like most bottom women who feel like they can't do any better, a lot of Black women have been traumatized into being blindly loyal to a party who is actively trying to replace them with Hispanics. And this attitude is one of the reasons why so many slave revolts were sabotaged. Because a lot of the slaves on a plantation would rather live in predictable misery than unpredictable and even uncomfortable freedom. Black men may not know exactly what they want, but they know what they don't want, and that's more of the same. And we should applaud them for having the courage to want more for themselves than a false sense of security that things could be much worse off the plantation. So while we may have a lot of, resentments towards Black men and we don't trust them and we feel like they are low-key hating on Kamala because she's a woman, so to speak, their concerns are justified. They've gotten a raw deal in this country just as Black women have. We cannot say Black women have suffered and muled and, been mistreated in this country and then act like Black men haven't been destroyed as well. So before we start throwing boulders at them and getting upset with them and attacking them, find out what they want and find out if what they want is in our shared mutual best interests. Because like it or not, most Black men live in proximity to Black women and Black children. And so if Black men are in a better position to take advantage of whatever the country has to offer by way of entrepreneurship and education and trades or whatever, then that would automatically benefit Black women, because even if these Black men don't want to partner with you in a relationship, at least they won't be out in the streets committing crimes and making your communities more dangerous. At least they'll have more opportunities to be productive citizens, which is better for the community at large. And so a lot of Black women complain about muling for Black men who don't give them anything in return. You can stop muling for the Democratic Party now, because they don't really need you anymore anyway. Just like the passport bros, they've already replaced you with the Hispanic vote, right? So they don't really need you as much as they say they do, or as much as you think they do. The only reason why the Democrats are still kind of sort of low-key pandering to Black people is because the Hispanic vote is largely split. They don't have a 70-30, 80-20, 90-10 dynamic going on like we do in the Black community. Their vote is not guaranteed. Even with all the tangibles they've been receiving, they can still do whatever the fuck they want to do and not be judged for it. So Black women, you don't have the right to try to browbeat or guilt Black men into voting for the same policies that put them in a position that you're complaining about in the first place. Look at Baltimore, look at Detroit, look at Philadelphia, look at the whole freaking state of California. What are we talking about right now? None of these spaces are truly safe havens for the Black community. Yes, some Black people can benefit as an individual, right? But again, I'm on social media and I'm seeing Black women complaining about not having children, not having a husband, not feeling valued. Despite all the money they have, their career successes and their Black girl magic, they still want a marriage. They still want a family. They still want a community to come home to. They don't want to have to keep moving around Karens and Zimmermans to have a good quality of life. I mean, only 25 to 30% of Black women are ever getting married, period. And as much as Black women pretend as if they don't need companionship, we all know that's a load of crap. It's a load of crap for many Black women. Not all Black women, because some Black women don't give a F about being with anybody. Some of us are loners, fine. But there are far too many Black women pretending to be gay in order to have some sort of companionship with a woman or a man. And these relationships tend to end in disaster. And we've seen this all over social media and society in general. So because you don't have the courage to question the Democratic Party, let Black men step up and do their job. The situation in this country is so dire, it's kind of forced Black men to really wake up and say, yo, this is not working for us anymore. It's not working. It hasn't worked for a long time. And, we as Black women should respect their newfound courage, because Black men have been dormant and sleeping on the job for decades. So yeah, don't make it harder for them to do what you want them to do in the first place, which is lead. And if you can't let these Black men lead, you're going to prove them right when they say that you're masses handmaiden. And you're the reason why the Black community is the way it is, because you don't want to get the plantation yourself. You enjoy your position as the bottom bee or the bottom woman for the massa, which obviously is harmful to them. Black women, haven't you noticed that as you've ascended in society as far as economic status, education, and resources, that Black men have descended in some way? There's an inversely proportional relationship between your progress and Black men's progress. Is that a coincidence, or is that by design? Are the disparities in education and economics between Black men and women caused by laziness, ineptitude, corruption, being stupid, not having work ethic, or are there other systemic challenges that the Democratic Party has been upholding for decades? Because if you look at Democratic cities and states, like New York, like Baltimore, like Chicago, like St. Louis, Black men are doing poorly economically and socially, and Black women are doing well economically, but not so well socially, because only 25-30% of you guys are getting married. And you obviously want it because you're complaining about it all damn day. You're modifying your bodies to look more appealing to these men. You're hating on other women trying to poach their men because you want what she has. I mean, you could lie to yourself, but you can't lie to God, right? Oh, one more thing I wanted to discuss briefly. A couple of weeks ago in the community section, I asked if Kamala Harris was the Kim Kardashian of politics. And of course, I got a lot of heated responses from women saying that I was being disrespectful. Of course, she's different, The reason why I asked that question is because Kamala Harris, just like Kim Kardashian, used their proximity to colorist Black men who were more powerful than them to gain positions of power and prominence. So a lot of non-Black and racially ambiguous women know that if you want to take a shortcut to success, all you have to do is put yourself in proximity to rich and powerful Black men who are more than likely colorist. Kim Kardashian came up off of Kanye West and Ray J. Amber Rose came up off of Kanye West and other Black men. And the same thing with Kamala Harris. She knew exactly who to target to get to where she needed to be, because she obviously did not want to do it the hard way. If she did it the hard and long way, no pun intended, then people would not still be talking about her dating history more than her professional career 30, 40 years later. I'll give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, okay? Whitney Houston, as you guys may know by now, is my favorite artist, right? My favorite singer, female artist. And Whitney Houston in this day and age will be considered, I don't want to say an industry plant, but she would be the beneficiary of nepotism to an extent, because her mother was in the music industry, aunts, cousins, godmothers, so on and so forth. So she was kind of plugged into the matrix from birth. She did not have to go through the same routes and passageways and other, pathways that other aspiring artists had to go through. All she had to do was basically say, I want to be a singer, and her mother plugged her into some people, and it happened quite quickly, right? She was signed to Arista, I believe, at 19 years old, or Atlantic, which one is it? I don't know. She was signed at 19 years old, and she was singing backup at 14 years old for Luther Vandross, right? But to this day, nobody really cares about the fact that Whitney Houston benefited from nepotism, because she was an extraordinary talent. And the world benefited from her extraordinary talent. And so even if she was a beneficiary of nepotism, you could not deny the fact that she was gifted. You could not deny that she was the best singer of her generation, and as far as pop music, right? Janet Jackson, on the other hand, was also a beneficiary of nepotism. But sometimes when people get mad, they mention the fact that she's not a good singer, and she only benefited from nepotism and the fact that she had good choreographers, which is also true. Janet Jackson is not an extraordinary vocal talent. So the reason why Kamala Harris's sexual escapades and dating history has taken up so much space in the discourse is because she was not a good prosecutor. She wasn't a good district attorney. She was not a good senator. She literally fell upwards. I don't know any Black woman that would have the ability to fall upwards. So whenever you fail and do a bad job, you get a promotion or raise. I don't know of any Black woman who's had that opportunity unless she was sleeping around. And even then, she would have had to bring something else to the table besides her looks. She would have to be genuinely talented. Whitney Houston was a nepotism baby, but she was so talented, she didn't have to use her, personal relationships to overcompensate for her weak vocal talents, right? Whitney Houston was a beast on the microphone, so nobody could deny the fact that she deserved to be there. Even if she was given that position, she deserved to be where she was just as much as, if not more, than some other artists. And so people would not be focusing on Kamala Harris's sexual dating history, just like they wouldn't focus on Kim Kardashian's sexual dating history as much if they had actual talent. If they were actually talented at something. Kim Kardashian is talented at what exactly besides marketing and selling beauty and creating an illusion? Neptune in the first house. Kamala Harris, the same thing. What is she necessarily good at? She has Pisces in the midheaven, right? It's a very deceptive, elusive social status or reputation. What is she exactly there for? Is she the best that one of the most elite education systems in the world has to offer? No, she's not. She only got to where she is because of who she was affiliated and associated with, and that's why it's following her to this day. She doesn't have any other accomplishments to lean on, and that is why people keep focusing on her, and that's why I call her the Kim Kardashian of politics, because number one, she used Black men's colorism as a come up, and number two, she's not a talented lawyer. I'm gonna be honest, Kim Kardashian is probably a better lawyer than Kamala Harris because her father was a lawyer. Like I said, there are many articles coming out about Kamala Harris's professional working history, and there are a lot of holes and gaps and discrepancies in her professional political career. This is well documented. So Black women and Democrats in general, please stop gaslighting us and acting as if we have an issue with Kamala Harris because she's racially ambiguous and because she's a female. It's nothing to do with that. We have elected clowns for president before. The problem is this clown is literally looking like a clown. She doesn't even know how to mask it well. Obama, the clown, at least looked like his wife was in a beard. Biden, the clown, did a decent job of hiding his mental health issues during the 2019 campaign, courtesy of COVID. He was able to hide out in his basement and not do interviews and stuff, so people didn't really see his mental decline until 3-4 months ago. But a lot of us said years ago that his mental health was in decline, and we were called senile. We were called haters. So the Democratic Party wants to gaslight us into believing that Kamala Harris was chosen for this position because she was just a phenomenal prosecutor, and she was a phenomenal district attorney, and she was amazing as a senator, and she was amazing as a vice president. All of these positions were handed to her because she knew how to play the game. And unfortunately, in this day and age, with Russia doing what they're doing, and Israel doing what they're doing, and China doing what they're doing, we can't have someone like her in that seat of power. A Condoleezza Rice or even a Hillary Clinton, and I hate that lady, would be better alternatives, because these women are like political sharks. You can tell that they live, eat, and breathe politics. They love political science. You can tell, right? Kamala Harris, it's obvious. I don't know what's happening You know, Saturn and Neptune are in Pisces, and that is on Kamala's 10th house of career, social status, reputations. All the delusions and deceptions that she's used to climb to the top in her career are being exposed now. And this could be her Achilles heel. What's interesting is that Kamala is a Gemini rising and Donald Trump is a Gemini sun. Jupiter's in Gemini this year. This election is going to be very interesting because of the dualities in these two people. They're actually quite similar in a lot of regards. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Listen, if I hurt anybody's feelings, I apologize. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but sometimes honesty must be sharp enough to cut out the malignancy of ignorance and fear. So I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm trying to wake people up to be more critical and to be more politically astute when making these decisions. I don't care who you vote for, but know why you're voting for them besides the fact that they're Black and they have swag and they're female. That's not a good reason to vote for anybody. And to be honest, if you have that thought process, you're proving to the world why you are destined to be replaced. Because these immigrants that are coming here and getting all these tangibles, including your jobs and homes and all this other stuff that you've been begging for decades, they're not playing those type of games. They're not just going to say, well, they look like this, I'm going to vote for them. That's slave plantation politics. And if you're going to be blindly loyal to the Democratic Party, decade after decade, without any pushback, without any sort of negotiations for what you want, why would they have any incentive to change their policies? Why would they not replace you once they don't need you anymore, right? You have no leverage at this point. You have voted yourself out of relevancy in this country, if you haven't noticed that. Yes, some of you guys have a little bit of titles and a little bit of money here and there, but the reason why you're begging the rest of us paupers to help you out in this election is because, like Obama, you have no connection with the collective until you want something from us. Then we become important. Then we become relevant, right? Now we have a voice. Now you care. And a lot of Black women are flattered by that attention. A lot of Black women like to be cajoled by massa because it means that massa is paying them attention. A lot of Black women want attention more than anything else because attention means that they have some validity, right? They're important to somebody. So yeah, this is what Obama is doing, and this is what the Black elites are doing right now. They are stepping out of their ivory towers to acknowledge the poor, pauper masses who mean nothing to them because we're not part of the Divine Nine, we're not part of Black excellence, for their personal individual benefit or the benefit of their particular fraternity or sorority, which is why they don't understand what Black men want. What's the problem with Black men? If you were actually a part of the community, not just by name, you would know what the problem was. And it's been a problem for the past 50, 60 years. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. I look forward to your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.